Hello everybody, thank you very much for joining me today. Today I want to talk about confidence. This past year, ever since I started to help non-native English speaking professionals to go from feeling inadequate to empowered, I noticed this seems to be the one thing that most people crave the most. And if you think about it, it actually makes quite a lot of sense because you can literally have the best strategies in the world, but if you're not genuinely confident in yourself, if you're missing confidence, then it's just not going to work. The strategies are just not going to be as effective if you're not genuinely confident in who you are as a non-native English speaker and in your English skills. And since we're in the holiday season right now, I thought today I will share some quick action steps with you that you could implement pretty much straight away when you go out and about socializing and connecting with people at Christmas parties, New Year's Eve parties, all kinds of parties and social occasions. So that way you can appear more confident, you can sound more confident when you speak in English with other people. So without further ado, let's get started. Tip number 1. Cultivate a positive self-image. First of all, you might be wondering, what is self-image? So basically, your self-image is how you see yourself. It's the story that you tell yourself about yourself. And the best way for you to know what kind of self-image that you have right now about yourself is just start paying attention to all the things that you tell yourself on a regular basis.
Things like, I'm always the quiet one at parties and in meetings, and people don't find what I have to say interesting, or I always get nervous, I always make mistakes, English is not my first language, which is why people don't want to talk to me, my English is not good enough because it's not my first language, like blah blah blah.
And you want to start paying attention to all these things that your internal voice is saying to you. The reason why this is so important is because, let's say now your primary belief is you're not good enough, your English is not good enough, then you might give up before you have even given yourself a fair shot and doing the things that you want to do. Also, when you feel like your English is not good enough, you have this negative self-perception, right? When you go to a party, meeting people for the very first time, and because of this negative belief, then the first thing that you might be saying to them is, I'm sorry for my English, I'm sorry for the mistakes, my English is terrible, it's not my first language, right? And then the first thing that you say to them before you even start connecting with them is you apologize. And when you're apologizing for something that's simply not your fault, then already you're positioning yourself below them because of this one thing. Another reason is that, here's the thing, the moment you start pointing out something, people will most likely start paying attention to it. For example, if now I want you to not notice the floral wallpaper that I have got here, don't think about it, don't look at it, just don't look at it, right? If I ask you not to look at the floral wallpaper, most likely you want to look at the floral wallpaper even more, right? And then it's the same thing with mistakes. The moment you ask people, you draw attention to your mistakes, the moment you start pointing out that you will be making mistakes, you're kind of giving them a heads up, I'm going to be making mistakes because it's not my first language, guess what? People will start noticing your mistakes even more, whereas usually people don't even pay attention to it. Tip number 2, preparation. You know what? Every single time when I tell a client for the very first time about the importance of preparation, even for social conversations, they're usually very surprised. And they're surprised for a good reason, because it never really crosses a lot of people's minds that we can prepare for social conversations as well. But I do want to let you know, even native English speakers do this as well. I remember when I was working at high school in the past, every single morning when I was on the train, I usually spent 10-15 minutes really just writing up a list of things that I could share with my colleagues on that day. So when I went into work, I would already have a couple of topics, a couple of stories in my back pockets that I could use at any time. And I remember there was one day I shared with one of my colleagues and then to let her know this is something that I have been doing myself. And much to my surprise, she said to me, I have been doing exactly the same thing myself as well. Especially on the Monday morning, I usually like to spend some time reflecting on the weekend and then to see if there was anything interesting that happened on the weekend that I could share with you guys. And that was really the moment that I knew, yes, I was definitely onto something right. Here's the thing, you can't just wing it. You can't just wing it. Especially if you're telling something for the very first time in a language that's not your first language. And of course, it's not like we have to write up a script, right? That's not what I did. And you don't have to write up a script. There is a smarter way to go about it for things that you want to say, that you want to share. It's more like knowing what topics to prepare for and then knowing how to deliver those stories. So you have the structure, you have the stories in your back pockets when you go out to socialize with people. 3, confidence comes from experiencing success, no matter how small. I know a lot of us here are quite ambitious. We feel like we have to be talking with like impressive vocabulary first, and then we need to have tons of stories ready to share. We want to be making as many friends and as many connections as possible, and we feel like only then can we then say to ourselves, we have finally achieved our goals. We can now see ourselves as a success. And I have to say, this is probably one of the biggest mistakes a lot of us can possibly make, which is we're setting ourselves like such high expectations, and then we feel like today if we don't achieve X, Y, and Z, then we can't exactly say to ourselves we're successful. And because we have such high expectations, right, we feel like we have to be prepared, we have to be 110% prepared. We need to learn X, Y, and Z first. We need to make sure that we feel ready before we can finally take action, before we can finally achieve the ultimate goal that we have in mind. We feel like we need to go from where we are right now to the ultimate goal that we want to hit, right? And then we're kind of like looking at the ultimate goal that we have, and then we feel overwhelmed. And then when you feel overwhelmed, then you're not going to be taking as much action. You're not going to feel as motivated to move forward. So the easiest way, the better alternative will always be breaking this down into small goals that you feel like you can reasonably hit. You want to give yourself like a series of mini milestones, and then you focus on the first mini milestone first. And it has to be a realistic goal for yourself, right? We want to set ourselves a realistic goal first just to get the ball rolling, for us to experience success as fast as we can. Because then once we have done this once, then we know we can keep going. Then that's when you're going to build up that momentum, you're going to gain momentum, and then slowly but surely it's gonna feel easier and easier for you to reach that ultimate goal that you want. You want to define for yourself what a realistic goal looks like to you, because it looks different to different people. For example, maybe if today you go into a party and as long as you have initiated one conversation, then it's considered a success. So that could be a realistic goal for you. And for some people, it could be initiating conversations 3 times, or going to 3 parties or 3 social occasions 3 times per week. So that's something you're gonna have to define for yourself, but I do want you to think about what's the immediate next step that is available for me to take. And then that's not going to make you feel like it's too overwhelming and I can't do it and I'm not looking forward to it, right? A realistic goal is something when you visualize in your mind, you know, yes, it's going to make you feel a little bit scared, but you know you have the means, you have the tools to accomplish it, even though it means you have to get out of your comfort zone. But you know it's making you feel a little bit excited as well. And slowly but surely, you will build up your confidence goal by goal, step by step, and before you know it, you now have the unshakable confidence that you desire. And it's all because you have taken small steps, baby steps, and then you have achieved mini milestones along the way, and then you celebrate all these small wins. Now, of course, there's tons of tips out there for us to use and implement to help ourselves become more confident. But these tips that I'm sharing with you today that I shared just now, they serve as a great starting point. If you only just want to start with one, that's totally fine. And that's actually more than enough for you to start seeing some results for yourself. And again, remember, confidence is a skill that can be mastered, that can be developed, that can be trained. It's a muscle, so it can be trained with the right support and then the right action. It's gonna get stronger and it's gonna get easier for you. Again, if there's any other tips that you'd like to share, I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to share it in the comments below. And if you want to be more intentional with the results that you get, feel free to join us inside our Facebook group. There's like tons of amazing resources in there. I share resources very frequently inside my Facebook group, so please make sure you go and check that out. Lastly, don't forget to check out Ana Luisa's jewelry. They are having a massive end of year sale right now, so you definitely don't want to miss that one. And since we're approaching the end of the year, I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I hope you're having a wonderful time with your loved ones and you're enjoying the time off because you deserve it. Speak to you again soon. Bye! Tip number 3, success comes from experiencing